So we're going to be factoring another quadratic here and find its solutions. So we're given 2x squared plus 9x plus 9 is equal to 0. And so our first step, which we always want to take, is to see if we can factor anything out by finding a greatest common factor. But there is no number shared between those 2x squared, the 9x, and the 9. So that means we're going to have to move on to our next step, which is to multiply our first term by our last term. So we're going to be taking 2 and multiplying it by 9. So we multiply 2 by 9, that gives us 18. And so now this is going to be similar to our usual steps when we do have no number in front of our x squared, so our a is equal to 1. We are just going to be finding factors of 18, which add up to our middle term, which is 9. So let's start with factors of 18. Those are going to be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, and 3 and 6. Next, we're going to see which ones add up to 9. So add to 9. 1 plus 18 gives us 19, which will not work. 2 plus 9 gives us 11, which also does not work. But 3 plus 6 does give us 9, so that will be the two factors which we're going to be using. So our next step is going to be to break up that middle term like we've been doing. So we'll rewrite this here as 2x squared plus 3x plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. So now that we have all of our terms written out here and it's expanded, we're going to put them into a box. So let's draw a 2 by 2 box, which we can factor out of here. And so we're going to take each one of these terms here and we're going to place them inside of our box. So I'm going to put my 2x squared in the bottom left here. And then I'm going to have to put my 9 diagonal from my 2x squared. So that means it's going to have to be in the top right. And then the 3x and the 6x are interchangeable. So I'm going to put my 3x here and my 6x. The only thing that's very important here is that our x squared term and our constant term are put diagonally from each other. So our next step is we're going to be finding greatest common factor shared between these terms and then working backwards to figure out what multiplies to equal a term inside the box. So I'll start here with 9 and 6. So what is the greatest common factor shared between 9 and 6? 6x specifically? It would be the number 3. They only share a number 3, they don't share an x. So that means if I was to work backwards here as well, what times this 3 here will give me 9? 3 times 3 gives me 9, so I can put 3 right here. And that also checks out on the top here because the greatest common factor shared between 3x and 9 is also 3. So after that, I'm going to look for another way to see what I can do to complete the box. So I'll use my 3 here, for example. What times 3 will give me 3x? That would be multiplying it by x, so that x will go down here because 3 times x equals 3x. And then lastly, I can do the same thing here. What times x will give me 2x squared, and that will be 2x. And so once we write all of these terms outside of our box, it should all check for itself. So again, now we can see 2x times 3 will give me 6x, and all of our terms are accounted for here. So now I'm going to take these numbers that are on the outside, the x and the 3, and the 2x and the 3, and write them as our factors. So that means the first one I'll write up will be 2x plus 3, and the second one will be x plus 3, and now that's going to be equal to 0. And our last step, just like we've been doing when finding solutions, is to set each one is equal to 0 and solve for x. So I'll have 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. I subtract 3. I get 2x, equals -3, and then I divide by 2. So I'll have x is equal to -3/2. So that's going to be one of my solutions. And the second one will be x plus 3 is equal to 0. I subtract 3 from both sides, and I get x is equal to -3. So finally, my two solutions, which I have for this question here, are going to be x is equal to -3/2 and x is equal to -3.